Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakodash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and salutations to the Akim who are tuning into these videos. In this video, I want to read a few precepts going into the topic about those that are crept in unaware, agents, wolves in sheep's clothing, if you will. And as we get closer and closer to this society collapsing, you're going to see that more and more, because Esau Edom right now is basically coming down with great wrath because he knows that he has but a short time. And so in his mindset, in his perspective, he's going to do anything and everything to kick dust up in the air so that he could slow down this ministry. Because this ministry, as we are speaking and prophesying the downfall of the society, is really what's making this place fall apart. We're chanting down Babylon and breaking strongholds because the words that we're speaking are true and evident, even that when we say these things, it dismisses and it dispels all of this false ideologies and lies, and we're turning everybody pretty much to the obedience of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai and the actual standard that's supposed to be lifted. Because you look at everything happening in society, it just points to the conclusion that it's Esau Edom running everything to the ground. And so as you're seeing us, the few of us on the highways and hedges, we are the only ones actually being an example of the scriptures, an example of the spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, the standard. And so when you're seeing that, of course the enemy on the other side of the chessboard is going to do things. It's going to scheme and do all these things, but ultimately we here in this ministry are not ignorant to Satan's devices. We are aware and privy to that because the Heavenly Father tipped us off that there's going to be wolves in sheep's clothing, that there's going to be false prophets, especially those amongst the circumcision, meaning those who are in the know, those who know why we wear fringes in our garments and stuff like that. But just to point out these things, because like this chapter, Matthew 24, we've been going into it a lot the closer we get to return of Yahweh Shai. Because everything that's spoken about in Matthew 24 is reflecting today's times. And as the watchmen, we're measuring the times diligently, and we're pointing out things. That's why you got various brothers. Some are more in tune with what's happening with the World War III algorithm. Some brothers are going into the financial situation. Some brothers are focusing on the tech industry and seeing Esau Edom's development of the MOTB. And when you gather all that together with us, the members of Great Millstone, we're going to break these things down and correlate them to what's happening in the scriptures prophetically. So the first precept I wanted to read here, because like right now, as we're getting closer to the end of this year, 2025, you can see a lot of false prophets, agents, and people basically, so to speak, trying to throw dust in the air to slow us down, trying to slow our momentum down. But ultimately, you can't do anything against the truth, but for the truth. All those Drewski-ites that showed up out of nowhere, it's only going to forward our fervency for this ministry, because it's only proving us right. To specify in this video, I wanted to highlight this part in Matthew 24, because that is a beautiful chapter. I always read a few precepts going into wars and rumors of wars, but if you read along down, like right here in verse 10, it speaks about the how it's going to be in these last days, especially amongst all these everyday people. So Matthew 24:10, it says, "And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another." And a lot of people are being offended from the ministry even. And that's basically people who they were with us, but they were never really with us. They are those of the instance in the parables where they didn't really do anything with the talent that they were given. Like if you go into the parable of the talent, there was a few men. Some of them were given this gold and they were able to flip it at the markets. But one person in particular, he had this truth, which is that gold, but he didn't do anything with it. He put it under the napkin. So you're going to have napkinites, I'll say it like that, in this ministry. You're going to have fallouts. You're going to have all these people that the scriptures actually apply to in a bad light. And we are those who basically want to be in a good light when Yahushua returns. That's why we're trying to get our garments ready for this wedding. So I'm going to read from the top again. Matthew 24:10, it says, "And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another." And that betrayal and hatred is something that you're not really going to see amongst the true brothers of Great Millstone. We do not tolerate offending one another, betraying one another, because these are tenets, these are commandments that we were told from Yahushua and going all the way down from the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, that these are things and characteristics that we should not have in our ministry. But ultimately, you're going to see those vibrations escalate. They're going to be amped up in these last days. So it says that there shall be many offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. We continue on, verse 11. "And many false prophets shall arise, and shall deceive many." And you're seeing that with these so-called other fringe Israelite groups saying a bunch of damnable heresies whose mouths must be shut, saying just a whole bunch of nonsense, really. And what they're basically set up to do is to gather the 2/3, just as we are set up to gather the 1/3, the hopeful elect, speaking this true word. They are on the other side of the board. So I'm going to read this also in Jude 1:4. It says, "For there are certain men crept in unawares, who were before of old ordained to this condemnation, ungodly men, turning the grace of our power into lasciviousness, and denying the only Lord Yahweh and our Lord Yahushua HaMashiach." And a lot of these people basically are worshipers of themselves or worshipers of money. Whatever it is, you could tell by their works. You could tell a person by their fruits. And when you look at Great Millstone, like, I'm not trying to toot our horn or esteem ourselves in that manner to be very prideful, but like, we're the only ones with the banner of Yahushua that's doing the right thing by the book. And so like, all these other people are basically falling to the wayside. And you're seeing it more and more happen as we get closer to Yahushua's return. Like Sakari used to be a household name amongst us, but now they're an afterthought. And that's going to happen to all these other various camps. Whoever isn't speaking in the vibration of Yahushua and his testimony of prophecy are going to fall to the wayside and are going to be proven to ultimately be wolves in sheep's clothing, or men that were really with us, but they were with us, but they were never really with us. As other precept, this is in Titus 1:9. I'll start at verse 8. It says, "But a lover of hospitality, a lover of good men, sober, just, holy, temperate," because this is going into like the tenets and characteristics that the hopeful elect are supposed to have and incorporate and practice. And in verse 9 it says, "Holding fast the faithful word as he hath been taught, that he may be able by sound doctrine both to exhort and to convince the gainsayers." And that's one of the things that we do when we're out there on the highways and hedges. Whether you hear or whether you forbear, we're warning you from Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai that there's about to be a whole bunch of chaos down here. And if you are not with Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai, you speak it to the so-called Black Latinos, Native Americans, who are the real Hebrew Israelites, well, then you're going to be out here without a paddle. And so that's why we're telling those of like in our nation to rest with us, because there's about to be an impending doom happening. And so we're convincing the gainsayers. And like, we even have that hand that we extend out to these various camps. You know, of course, we're going to curse out the leaders of these various camps because they're putting stumbling blocks amongst our nation family members. But they're basically not going to grab that hand. So like, that hand is basically like how we're giving grace to them is only for the hopeful elect. So like because there has been instances where a brother amongst Great Millstone actually started in a various camp. Those are those instances. But so like that's why it says here to convince the gainsayer. When we're out there, we're speaking against this whole society, and anybody who hears this word and it resonates with them are going to join us. And we're not really about numbers. We're about the exact number of the 144,000. That's the only number that we're worried about, or we care about, I should say. So I'm going to continue on. This is in verse 10. For there are many, for there are many unruly and vain talkers and deceivers, especially they of the circumcision, whose mouths must be stopped, who subvert whole houses, teaching things which they ought not, for filthy lucre's sake. And you're seeing that to be more and more evident as we get closer to Yahushai's return. I haven't been really keeping up and following with these other various camps like IOIC or ISUPK, but I know other brothers do. I know other brothers have the spirit of Yahushai to point out these things, and because we're also marking the perfect men and pointing out these damnable heresies. Like, because like I referenced that these things are kind of afterthoughts to us, because when we hear like the damnable heresy of John the Baptist wasn't in the truth, we dismiss that and we keep it rolling. We keep it moving in the spirit. But when a person comes up to us, like that instance that happened in Dallas, at the Dallas camp, it was during Halloween, and basically a person didn't understand what he was wearing or doing. He was basically just cosplaying as a Hebrew Israelite during Halloween of all days. But ultimately, we're going to see this happen more and more, especially amongst the circumcision, which means basically people who are in the know of at least one or two things that the society ain't it, and that we are the Hebrew Israelites. And like literally, there's no excuse now. Everybody and their mama knows about this truth. It's on TV, it's on social media. You go on TikTok, you're going to see it. So let me get this other precept real quick, just in Jeremiah 23, because a lot of the people here have been led astray, mainly by Esau, Edom. But as we get closer to the return, it's going to start being those amongst the circumcision who took that bag, wolves in sheep's clothing. So this is in Jeremiah 23:1. Woe be unto the pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pastures, saith the Lord. And it says woe unto them because even though they were set up to guide the 2/3 to the slaughter, they're still going to be judged for that. Like all these people are going to basically be partakers of the lake of fire once this place is ultimately done away with, because this is basically a heavy judgment of doing that, basically having yourself being hand in hand together with the enemy, and then the captain Yahushai returning, seeing you doing that, you're gonna have a heavy judgment that's gonna happen on you. And so like when we say these things, like if a person is basically on another camp or whatever, this should galvanize you. This should make you consider what we're speaking and actually look for and hasten the return for Yahushai. Not watching after what a pastor elder from various camps have to say. Yeah, we do in this ministry, Great Millstone, we esteem our elders and prophets and our chain of command because the scriptures do say that. But ultimately, a lot of these people need to be checked. At Great Millstone, we are trained to be like the Church of Berea. We search these things out. We don't just be yes men and agree. We actually do the math and show the homework also. But going into these pastors, these wolves in sheep's clothing, I'm going to read in verse 2. It says, Therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh power of Israel, against the pastors that feed my people. Ye have scattered my flock, and driven them away, and have not visited them. Behold, I will visit upon you the evil of your doings, saith the Lord. And I will gather the remnant of my flock out of all countries, whither I have driven them, and will bring them again to their folds, and they shall be fruitful and increase. So these three verses I just read is literally what we're doing. And like I referenced, we don't care about the billion followers. this and that, and how much money they donate to us for their tithes or whatever. This is not a numbers thing. We are only worried about, like what it says in verse 3, the remnants. And this word is basically going throughout the four corners of the earth and accomplishing that what it was sent to do, which is to seal the elect. So I'm going to read just these last precepts and then finish this video off. This is in Luke 22 and 32. But I have prayed for thee that thy faith fail not, and when thou art converted, strengthen thy brethren. Because we also strengthen brothers. We don't just warn you for no reason. We tell you that there is an escape. Is that if you trust in Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai, that you're going to be stable in these last days. And you really just have to have faith. Just like how when Yahushai was walking on water, I believe it was Peter, who he started to waver in his faith because he also was walking on water, except that he was kind of scared, shaky. It was his first time walking on water, so he started to stumble a bit. And Yahushai was saying that, "O ye of little faith." And so that's why when you come into this ministry, with all that get understanding, because eventually you're going to be out there and you have to walk on water. But right now, this is the training exercise so that like when we actually do walk on water, we're able to sprint on it and not stumble. So like with right now, this is the time to lock in, to study. And when you're in this ministry, we pray that your faith does not fail, and we strengthen and convert one another. That's why, like, one thing to dismiss these random people on the internet who are going up against the camps. But we are meant to have camps so that we can strengthen one another. That's the only way that it's set up to do. All right, so I'm going to read this last precept. This is in Matthew 7 and 15. And just a heed warning, because as we're watchmen and we're watching things that are happening on the East Coast, war, we have to see things that are also happening on the West Coast, that the false prophets are doing things. So this is in Matthew 7 and 15. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. So we're warning you of these people, and we're marking them, letting you know that they're going off. That really these other various camps are set up to make us look foolish amongst the world. Because at the end of the day, Esau Edom is really just trying to throw dust in the air so that he makes us look stupid. But ultimately, like I already referenced, you can't do nothing against the truth, but for the truth. Anything and everything Esau does in his chess moves is only going to make more openings so that when Yahushua returns, it's just one checkmate. But with that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, B'Hashem Yahushai, B'Hashem Rakakwadash, and Shalom Akim.